Well, it's a busy time right now. It's not only the holidays, but we've got an awful lot of activity going on in the town of Easton. As most people continue to tell me, when is it going to slow down a little bit? It's probably not going to slow down anytime in the near future because there just is so much stuff going on, not only with festivals and those type of activities, but also public works projects and some of the engineering projects that we have going on.
Certainly.
So we're looking forward to a busy winter and getting all ready to break ground again in the spring and start off again with another busy year in 2022.
Certainly. And what projects is the town working on? What do you have going on?
Well, right now, I'd like to put a plug in for the Waterfowl Festival. I think they had a great weekend in Easton. Activity-wise was very well under control. The police department had very little response that they had to do. We had a lot of people in town. We got an awful lot of good comments about the town, and I think the merchants at the Waterfowl Festival actually had a good session also. So that turned out pretty well. We've just this coming week we will finish our last distribution on the American Rescue Fund money that was given to us by the federal government back in August. As you may recall, we were allotted $16.4 million for various activities that included helping businesses that suffered during the pandemic so far, public works projects, and also to pay premium pay to employees that had worked over the pandemic. The first check was $8.2 million, and as I say, this coming Monday night at the town meeting, we will have distributed the last of that first $8.2 million. That doesn't mean we're finished yet. We're finished for this round, but people should remember that we'll also open up an application process probably in the early spring next year for the next $8.2 million that comes in August. So those who are interested in applying for this should contact Charles Conley at 410-822-2525, get an application from him and follow the procedures. And we hope to be able to have more money available for small businesses, and because a lot of the public works projects, like I say, are underway, and we've ordered a couple of fire trucks. We don't do that every year, so that money will be available for small businesses. So we're looking forward to next year, even greater anticipation than we had this year. We also have started something else. It's been kind of a point with me that we don't really have our finger on the pulse of the business community in town. So we've started going around on Fridays, taking 2 or 3 businesses at a time and going to visit them and saying, hey, here we are there any issues that you have that we can help with? And giving them a face and some names that they can talk with if they do have issues. So that started a few weeks ago. Seems to be well received, and we're going to continue doing that until we see everybody that needs to be talked with, or at least that we meet with. We haven't had it just in the downtown area, but we're trying to do it with the business community in Easton as a whole. The holiday parade, don't forget that. That's this Saturday. I'm told they have 66 units in the parade so far, which means that they'll probably finish up about the time the others are starting. So we'll get into that knot a little bit that we always seem to have, which turns out to be more fun than anything. We have the Fire and Ice Festival, and right now that's scheduled for President's Day weekend in February. So we're looking forward to getting that going. Yesterday we broke ground on another section of the Rails to Trails, and this one will run eventually from Aurora Street clear to Port Street. Some of that's already in place, and we're starting to work on the final section that'll fill that in. And then the last that we have to do will be from Port Street down to Easton Point Park. And that should finish the rail trail east-west, north-south for the foreseeable future. And it's about 6 miles, so it's a good walk if you want to take and do all of it at one time.
Sure.
The Easton Fire Department is scheduling a groundbreaking, I think, right now, sometime mid-January for a training ground they want to put in place out at the Mistletoe Hall complex. But they want to put a training ground in that will allow them to continue updating the fire department personnel and tactics and education. And it also will help with all the younger members now that they're taking in. So we're looking forward to that getting going. There's a sketch there of a couple fire engines that are on order now that should be here by the end of 2022. We had a project now that's going through the planning and zoning process, the corner of Elliott Road and 328. That's going to be 3 apartment buildings that are going up. That seems to be progressing nicely and should start probably in the middle part of next year. And of course, the Gannon Estates property on the 328 around Swan Haven Road, there's the 200 houses right now that are proposed to go into there. And that's kind of going through the process now, and it's a question and answer period. And we have some meetings set up with them to iron out some of the last details. A couple of years ago, there was a fellow in town by the name of Lord Scott who was quite active during the holiday season with a holiday dinner and
Yes.
and presents and gifts and so forth. And it was thought nice to honor him in some way on his death. So what we decided to do was to name the street part of South Washington Street. We name as Scotty's Way. And signs are put up on the street signs on the street post, the signpost that proclaim it as Scotty's Way. And those signs went up this morning, and they'll stay up for the next couple of weeks just to bring recognition to the fact that Lord Scott was pretty influential in town during the holiday season. And I think several organizations and individuals are trying to continue that work and keep it going, and they're finding out that it's more work than they had probably anticipated, but they're working very diligently, and we think that the legacy of Lord Scott will continue. We have right now contracts pending on 3 or 4 lots at the Mistletoe Hall Industrial Park that we're putting in place. So we hope to bring those to finalization sometime this spring and get some construction going out there. There's been some conversation about the visitor center across the street and why it's not open on weekends. And we're currently in conversation with the county, since it is their operation, that we ought to really have the visitor center open on weekends for both folks coming into town. And they need to be able to get directions around, not only with the kiosks that we have in several locations, but also to have an individual they can talk to get some information together. And along with that, there's also some concern about public restrooms, so you may hear more about that in the future. Good news, the paving in town's finished for another year. We're not tearing up any more streets unless there's an emergency. We're done with that for a couple months. There will be some individual projects going on, but you'll be able to get around town without having to see detours and what have you. We have a lot of improvements underway now at the Easton Point Park. If you go down now, you'll actually see a fence and some gates that's being put in by the Public Works crews right now. We've also paved Flood Avenue, and that will become the main entrance into the Easton Point Park. And that also has improved an area that was under control of about 3 different government organizations. And if you can imagine 3 government organizations in one area, it's chaos at its best.
Sure.
But we've got that squared away.
And the town now controls Flood Avenue. Is the owner
It
has
does
the ownership.
control Flood Avenue. We've paved it, and as I say, we're cleaning up the area that used to be the old public works storage buildings and so forth. And we do have some exciting opportunities with Phillips Wharf to put their operation in down there. We feel that it'd be a nice draw for people to come to see the park. We'll begin the southern states will be out of their operations sometime this spring or early summer, and we'll start to clean that up. So that's just another step in the process of getting this area cleaned up and making it more available to folks to use. It's not news now, but the chief is retiring, the chief of police, David Spencer, after 44 years on the job. He'll be retiring in the first part of January. We have almost 70 applications for the job that we'll be going through. I have asked several law enforcement folks in the local area to help go through the process of reviewing the applications and trying to take that 70 down to a more manageable number, like 10, 12, 15, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then we'll schedule some interviews to try to finalize it from there. But it looks like we will not have a police chief in place until probably sometime late February, early March, by the time we do all the interviews. And we'll be selecting an interim chief here in the next few weeks. We also plan to start a cadet program with the police department that will hopefully start probably around the first of the year, but we're looking at getting some young folks that are just out of high school that may be interested in law enforcement and bring them on as cadets. It'll be a paid position and uniforms and what have you, and we can use them for meter enforcement. We'll use them for traffic control, all of the non-legal things that police usually get involved in. At the carnival, for instance, or the 4th of July, we can use them to help with traffic and crowd control. But it seems like a good opportunity to get young folks involved in the police business, and that way keep us a steady flow of folks coming in. And we'll be looking at people right out of high school up to about 22 years of age. Okay. After that, they need to really decide whether they want to be a law enforcement officer or possibly it's not the career they thought it was going to be and go do something else. So that has a real, that looks like a bright avenue for us for the future. Dog Park, we're still waiting for the group that's working on that to come back with a finalized plan, so that's still there. We will be looking at possibly park fees for the teams that use our athletic fields now that we've got them lighted, and the amenities that go with them. We find that it's a very expensive proposition, and we need to look at possibly charging a fee for use of those fields. Won't be a huge amount, but excuse me, but it's something we need to help defray some of the costs that we have going on. I did say we're not going to tear up any more streets, but we do have 3 drainage projects that may block traffic for a while. One of these is on Glenwood Avenue down near the school that has to be fixed. If you happen to ride that way, you'll see the area I'm talking about. It's just past the entrance into the school. There's also some broken sidewalk and curb down there that will get finished. Cherry Street, there's an issue there with drainage, so we'll get that fixed. And also Harrison Street has a problem that when the original drain was put in, it was undersized. So we've got to replace that or find some way to bleed the water off so that it doesn't flood the local businesses and the streets. So that'll be taken care of, and we expect all that to start in the spring as as soon as we get through winter and catch our breath and get ready to get started on some other things. Good news, next week we expect to have 6 new officers graduate from the Warwick Police Training Academy down at Salisbury. And if everything goes well, with our usual process is we'll wait for them to get their diploma and then we put them on the job right then. Don't give them a chance to do any more than eat lunch before they become on the pay. You got to get on the payroll and get moving forward. So those are some of the things that we have really going on, John. And as I say in the past, if people have any questions, give me a call, give me an email message, anything like that, and we'll do our best to get an answer back to you as quickly as we can. So if there's anything concerning you, don't let it fester. Let me know what's going on.